software to do because they already do such a thing for Satoshi, so for the native currency for Bitcoin Cash itself. So, and CashTokens are token primitives, so it's not really a hard-coded token standard saying this is the one way to do this, to do tokens, this is the perfect way, but it's flexible enough. It's like primitives, it's building blocks where you can build upon, so you can build multiple token standards with different trade-offs or for different use cases. So the two primitives are fungible and non-fungible tokens, so FTs and NFTs. Fungible tokens have an amount and can be added together. So if you have 2 times 5 test tokens, you can send 10 of them in your outputs. Whereas NFTs are unique, they're one-off, and they can have commitments, which means messages. So each NFT has a place for some data, a data field where arbitrary data can put in, and this will be important later. So this data field for the NFT has some important use cases. As it says, contract emitted messages. So this is the use case for NFTs. This is something that was not possible before. So a smart contract with the CashTokens upgrade can now put out an NFT, which has a token ID associated with the contract, and it can put in the NFT data field, it can put a message, and this NFT can then be validated by other programs, like other smart contracts or external software, to see what does this say. For example, for an NFT mint, that's an example application of CashTokens. If you do an NFT mint, this contract emitted message could be how much NFTs did the contract mint. And it would have this in a state, so in the message data of an NFT. And this could easily be checked by other contracts. So this way you can have interaction between contracts, and contracts can read each other's state or data. So this is a big thing. The timeline, how did CashTokens come to be? There was a specification in February of 2020, so of last year. And then there was lots of development happening in that year with regards to CashTokens. And then there was a demo version of the software of the full node implementation in November 2022. So this is a testnet called ChipNet, where new protocol upgrades are staged. So developers can already start developing and testing out their software, even building new applications. So this is also when I started building on CashTokens. So before this, the specification, it's all kind of theoretical. People are promoting the advantages, but you cannot get your hands on it. But then when there's actually a testnet deployed, people can play around with ChipNet coins, and you can mint your own tokens. You can start, first the library support had to come. So general low-level libraries like Bidart, and then there were other libraries where developers, as myself, could write applications with. So I got started and started developing my own and the very first CashTokens wallet in January on this test network. And then this year in May, after 6 months later, so half a year later, it finally activated on mainnet. So this was quite a big deal. And finally, those CashTokens applications, which were just demos and tests for half a year, could be released onto the main network. So this is the blog post that introduced CashTokens. It says, CashTokens, token primitives for Bitcoin Cash. And it's written by the creator, so the brains behind the CashTokens upgrade, namely Jason Dresner. And I'll shortly read his summary. He says, CashTokens enable decentralized applications comparable to Ethereum contract functionality while retaining Bitcoin Cash's over 1000x efficiency advantage in transaction and block validation. So why is this summary a big deal? Because Ethereum got to the #2 biggest cryptocurrency because of its expressive smart contract language and smart contract functionality. So everybody has heard of ICOs, NFT mints, maybe AMM DEXs. So they are all a big thing in Ethereum, and they were not possible on Bitcoin Cash and UTXO chains before. So the big improvement is that with CashTokens, Bitcoin Cash can now have comparable contract functionality to Ethereum. So we take inspiration from Ethereum, although it works very differently. So Ethereum uses an account model and global state, whereas UTXO, we and Bitcoin Cash and the Bitcoin family generally, we use UTXOs and now local state. So there's no concept of global state, only the transaction level data is the state. And then the big advantage that Bitcoin Cash has compared to Ethereum is the 1000x efficiency advantage in block and transaction validation. So with the account model, and especially with global state, Ethereum added a lot of overhead, and it's why it can scale properly. So while Bitcoin, despite its history, is actually pretty scalable, like the design can be parallelized and is immensely scalable, Ethereum has some hard bottlenecks because of its design. And in Bitcoin Cash, we want to have the same smart contract functionality, although with a different architecture, but much, much more scalable. So this is the vision. So the same functionality as Ethereum, but with low fees and no limit on the throughput. So we won't stop at 25 transactions per second on the base layer, but maybe 1,000 multiple of that seems like the goal we should be aiming for. So what's the lineage? So Cash tokens didn't come out of nowhere. On Bitcoin Cash in 2018, we had something that was called tongue-in-cheek the token wars. So there were many ideas for different token schemes. Wormhole was one of the popular ones. There was also counterparty cash, colored coins, SLP, which became one of the victors, I guess, CashToken and Opgroup. So these were all ideas. They got implemented into like various stages. Mainly Wormhole and SLP became popular, and Opgroup never got implemented. Because Opgroup was a native token scheme, a new opcode namely, whereas the others were layer 2 token schemes. And this distinction will be important later. So Cash tokens was the result of years of research and development, including by Tobias Reck, I would say, with Nimbus and Mitra. So the ideas on how to do like recursion in smart contracts to prove that each token transaction was a valid building on the history. So you didn't need to validate like a whole bag of transactions. And the predecessor, so the direct predecessor of Cash tokens, is an ID by also Jason Dreisner called PMV3. And it's, yeah, I would say more similar to the Mitra ID with recursion. And it combines, Cash tokens as a whole, combines IDs from PMV3, group tokens, and Mitra. So it's I would say it takes the best parts of the different specifications. So this was the direct predecessor, PMV3. I was already very excited about this, but it was much harder to get started with. So it says PMV3 built decentralized applications on Bitcoin Cash. So the predecessor wasn't even really about tokens at all. It didn't mention tokens. It's about decentralized applications. And as you can see at the top of this blog post, PMV3 was withdrawn in favor of Cash tokens in February of 2022. And this blog post of PMV3, it shows how the recursion would work, where you can prove a whole lineage of token transactions or a whole lineage of decentralized application transactions in a small proof. And this blog post was from 2021. So decentralized applications, what do we mean when we want to enable this with, for example, when PMV3 talked about it or when this appears in the Cash tokens blog post? So we think about a few different use cases, but PMV3 specifically stands for prediction markets. So the PM and V3 stands for that it would introduce a third transaction format. So this never happened because it was replaced by the Cash tokens ID, but the concept of prediction markets still lives as a very strong concept in BCH. So it's a decentralized application that would be enabled by Cash tokens. Then also DAI-like stablecoins. So this is more with the electronic cash use case. That's more aligned. So this means over-collateralized stablecoins. And for DAI, there is an organization, a DAO, with different shareholders, which can vote on, for example, what this collateral can exist of, and when the interest rates either need to go up or down or stay the same. So DAOs are also a form of decentralized applications, so decentralized autonomous organizations. Then a third item, or a very important example of decentralized applications, is AMM DEXs, so automated market maker decentralized exchanges. The most popular example is Uniswap, but now there's tons of them. So on BNB there's CakeSwap and yeah, lots of different AMMs, and they have been called the killer use case of DeFi, like the 0 to 1 moment of DeFi. What these AMM DEXs do is you lock up tokens and the native asset, for example, Bitcoin Cash, or then most of the time it's Ethereum and a token in a smart contract, and you can swap between them. So there's no need for an order book or anything like that. And it provides liquidity 24/7. The only drawback, as many people in crypto have noticed, is that, of course, this liquidity can be rugged. So it's important that these AMMs have liquidity in different contracts. Then another important example of decentralized applications is sidechains. So sidechains as a concept haven't really taken off in crypto. So mainly they can be considered as a special kind of layer 2, where you can move the native asset back and forth with different consensus rules. Then two other forms of decentralized applications are ICOs and NFT mints, which have both become very popular on Ethereum with varying degrees of success, but they are also important forms of decentralized applications. So now I shortly want to discuss other token systems. So for example, SLP on BCH. So SLP is still alive and it still works and it's still popular, for example, on eCash with new iterations. But on BCH, it kind of fell apart, unfortunately. And this is because of a few reasons. An important reason is that the main driver behind the infrastructure was Bitcoin.com, the company. But Bitcoin.com depreciated its support. So it kind of pulled the rug in a certain sense by winding down all its infrastructure in a very short term. But also there's more fundamental reasons why SLP didn't really take off the way we hoped on Bitcoin Cash. One of the reasons is that it's not scalable, so there's no real way to do SPV. SPV means simplified payment verification, so like you can validate all the transactions on your mobile phone. And this is not really possible with SLP because it's not validated by the consensus rule. So you need a trusted indexer to ask, is this token transaction paying me? Is it valid or is it just a bogus token data on the blockchain? Another reason that another problem that SLP had is the accidental burns. So if you send SLP tokens to a wallet which does not support them, it's possible those tokens accidentally get burned, which is not a feature, it's a bug. And another drawback of SLP, because it's not native tokens, is that you can't really do a lot with smart contracts. You can do some features with script, but for example, if you want to check tokens in your inputs and outputs, you never know that the tokens are valid because they are not verified by script or by the whole blockchain. So it's harder to use them in smart contract use cases. And in Bitcoin Cash, we had an additional problem where we did not have good indexers. So I'm glad to see Tobias is working on a good indexer for eCash. But failing indexers was a big problem. And of course, without solid infrastructure, you can't really expect your token system to be sustainable. And then, of course, a drawback that's not really a drawback, but compared to CashTokens, it does not allow for all these things, right? It does not allow for complex decentralized applications because you need a way for contracts to be able to talk to each other. So these things are not possible, none of them really, with SLP tokens or with layer 2 token projects. And then SLP was kind of falling apart, but people in Bitcoin Cash unfortunately were saying, yeah, but we have an SBCH, we have the smart contract sidechain, we have an EVM called a Smart Bitcoin Cash. So they kind of used the branding of Bitcoin Cash, but saying we are the smart sidechain. But it was not a very smart design because it used like a centralized bridge. They just trusted one exchange to hold all the funds and to manage withdrawals and deposits to the sidechain. And unfortunately for the SBCH project, this exchange wrecked them, so it went bankrupt. I collaborated to the research to improve this bridging mechanism, to have a proper decentralized bridge, but it was hard to implement and it never happened. So unfortunately, this centralized bridge became the downfall of SBCH, so that was in June of last year. So then in Bitcoin Cash, we were pretty much without a token system altogether until CashTokens appeared in May of this year. So May is not that long ago, it's only 5 months. Of course, we still had a testnet setup where you can argue we have been developing on it since November. So it's a bit longer than 5 months if you count from the testnet work. But these are the applications we currently see on mainnet. So this is kind of the CashTokens ecosystem in one overview. So the first 4 icons you see are wallets with CashToken support. So some of them are new. So Zapit is a wallet with CashToken support. They faded out SLP support because of all the problems we had. Then there's CashTokens, that's a wallet I started. In the beginning, it did not have a brand or anything, but I'm kind of happy with my new logo. Then Paytaka. Paytaka also supports CashTokens. And then lastly, Electron Cash, which is still working on expanding its metadata support, but it shows the tokens correctly, so you can receive and send CashTokens. Then after the 4 wallets, I have 2 more icons, which are also important for the CashTokens ecosystem. The first one is the Wallet Connect icon, which you might recognize if you use smart contract apps on Ethereum. So Wallet Connect is a way where each smart contract app doesn't have to build its own wallet. The idea is that you can have your wallet, like one of these 4 with CashToken support, and that you connect your smart contract application to a wallet. So this way, application developers don't have to build their own wallets. And this has worked well. It's kind of becoming an industry standard. The Wallet Connect, it was originally made for EVM, so for Ethereum and Ethereum-like blockchains, but it has now been expanded to also support, for example, UTXO blockchains. Then the last icon on the first row is CashScript. So CashScript is a project I work on, and we have upgraded this as soon as we could. So by the mainnet, I think by March of this year, CashScript was upgraded for CashTokens, and this meant that people could start writing smart contracts with CashScript for CashTokens, or some of these more complex applications. Not full decentralized applications, but initial CashToken support was already out. And we saw this being used by some of the projects at the second row. So the first row is mainly infrastructure, and the second row is projects that we have seen coming out over these 5 months. So the first is Cauldron. It's a project by Dagger and his team, who some of you may know. So the Cauldron app is a swap app, like a Uniswap. It's still a first version, but it works. And it supports, now it supports CashTokens generally, so fungible tokens only. But you can list your own token. You can make a liquidity pool yourself for your hobby project or for your serious token project, provide liquidity. So you need to put up your token and then an amount of BCH. And then people can start swapping back and forth, like they can, for example, with Uniswap. Then the second icon is the icon of TokenStork. TokenStork is like a CoinMarketCap website where you see different cash tokens. So, of course, CoinMarketCaps only work for fungible tokens and not for NFTs. And the nice thing about these two, about Cauldron and TokenStork, is that they are integrated with each other. So TokenStork will actually show what the total value locked is in Cauldron, and it will calculate the market cap based on the latest price data from these smart contracts. So these two are the fungible token ecosystem on Bitcoin Cash. And then the last 4 items you see are focused on the NFTs. So NFTs have seen some initial traction on CashTokens. So the first icon is TapSwap. The website is tapswap.cash, and it's a way to trade, like to non-custodially sell your NFTs or buy them. So that's the nice thing. It uses Wallet Connect. So it uses some of the infrastructure that was developed, and it also uses CashScript. So this way, you can buy and sell NFTs on TapSwap. And then the last 3 icons are just collectible NFT projects we have seen on CashTokens. So the first one is the Cash Ninjas, which I helped develop myself, and I will show you a little more about. Then we have BCH Guru, and lastly, the BitCats. So these are just some NFT projects you can see on TapSwap. So I would recommend for the curious to just take a look at those projects. So this is the Cash Ninjas I helped develop. So it just showcases how you can do NFT mints, which is an example of decentralized applications on Bitcoin Cash. And as you can see, this is we launched 2 days ago and made everything open source. The nice thing for me was also that we made an AI integration. So we name all the ninjas with some AI name and description. We minted, I think, now around 900 of them in the first 2 or 3 days. But the transition I want to make is I'm talking about NFTs. So have Bitcoin Cash developers lost the plot? Are they still talking about electronic cash, or are they only talking about tokens and some of the grifts that come with them? So I would argue smart contracts have cash use cases. So there's not a clean line between this is tokens, this is smart contracts, and this is peer-to-peer electronic cash. Because, for example, recurring payments, vaults, kind of last will, inheritance contracts, and mecenas, so kind of donation contracts, which recurring donations, are all forms of smart contracts. And they are a clear use of cash. So without smart contracts, none of these will be possible. And vaults are actually improved with these, the CashTokens upgrade. So some of these benefit directly from having proper cash tokens or proper smart contracts on Bitcoin Cash. Then secondly, it enables over-collateralized stablecoins. So if you want electronic cash for the whole world, one of the first problems you will run into is volatility. And volatility is a big problem. So one of the best solutions, in my opinion, that we have seen in crypto is a DAI-like stablecoin where you over-collateralize the token with the native asset. For example, for Ethereum, you would lock up $500 of Ethereum to only issue $100 of DAI. And this way, the DAI is over-collateralized. So still, if the Ethereum price drops, there is still enough collateral to switch back the DAI for Ethereum. And in the event that the price drops so much, there needs to be a liquidation event. So these DAI-like stablecoins or these over-collateralized stablecoins are now also possible with cash tokens. So I think that's very important for the electronic cash use case. And then secondly, for electronic cash, there's also blockchain native assets. So these blockchain native assets are things that are traded on the blockchain, so they might not have any real world representation. So they are different from tokens which represent things in the real world, but they do still have positive effects on the underlying native asset of the blockchain. For example, they increase liquidity. If you make a fun meme coin on cash tokens and you decide to make an AMM smart contract for it, so where people can swap back and forth, it still increases the liquidity of Bitcoin Cash. So it's good for Bitcoin Cash that there is more demand, more liquidity. So there are direct benefits of tokens for the underlying network. Also, the increasing network effect. For example, the NFT projects we see here, they do nothing else than promote Bitcoin Cash and cash tokens, just for the sole reason that they exist on cash tokens. So they need to promote cash tokens wallets. They need to teach users about how to use those cash tokens. So I would argue that these cash tokens actually do a lot for also adoption. The tokens are not exactly the same as using, for example, BCH at a merchant, but it still is a good way to increase your network effect, to get people on board, to have them download wallets, and to get more users into the ecosystem. And then lastly, as many people probably know, tokens increase speculative demand. So it's not only the speculative demand for the tokens themselves, but also the demand for BCH. And I put speculative between brackets because some of the tokens you see on Ethereum, for example, they are not only speculative, they also have some use case that's longer term. And this is an example of the Cauldron DEX. So I just wanted to show how easy it is. So this is a screenshot. I selected a token called Doge Cash, and then you can swap back and forth. So this would this would put more BCH into the smart contract and take Doge Cash out. And this way, you have essentially done a swap with a smart contract. So no order books or no centralized exchanges involved. So I'm very glad to see this on Bitcoin Cash. There's still a lot of room for improvement, but it's important to have a first version out so we can start iterating on this concept. So this was kind of a speedy overview of the whole cash tokens ecosystem. And I want to give an overview, big picture, where we are at in Bitcoin Cash today. So if we start at the top, which is the most recent, today or yesterday evening, I don't remember, I took this screenshot from the CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko website, and it shows Bitcoin Cash at place 17, right above Shiba Inu, which is a meme token on Ethereum, and below Litecoin and wrapped Bitcoin. So I would say that's not doing too well, especially Litecoin. Litecoin I don't want to be controversial, but there's little development going on and little innovation. So we should at least try to be better than Litecoin. But if we take a look at we were before, right before the CashTokens upgrade, we were at place 29 behind the internet computer and just before True USD. So that's even a bleaker picture. I would say Bitcoin Cash was in a very bad position with SLP falling apart, with SBCH collapsing and hurting many users. So not only the excitement was low, but also the price and the position of Bitcoin Cash. And it's important to remember where we came from. So right after the split, I picked a semi-random date, but it used to be at position number 3. So right after Bitcoin at number 1, Ethereum at number 2, and Bitcoin Cash at number 3. So we should keep this in front of our minds, that we didn't used to be at place 30, we used to be at place number 3, and we should be ambitious and aim to be at number 3 once again. And I think that's possible. So of course, a lot of development and a lot of growing has to happen. But with the initial traction that we saw, so with this initial ecosystem, I'm hopeful that this is enough of a seed to grow a large tree. And then, how do we get back? I think that's the logical question. So we are at 17, still top 20, I guess, but not in the top 10 at all, certainly not top 5. So what's the strategy here? What's the Bitcoin Cash vision? And of course, I can't speak for everyone involved in Bitcoin Cash, but we have some catching up to do, obviously. So first of all, we have to catch up to the Ethereum innovations, because Ethereum is still at number 2. And Ethereum wasn't born, like Bitcoin was born at number 1, but Ethereum had to deserve its second place. And many are, like myself, are expecting that Ethereum will one day flip Bitcoin because it just has more community, more projects going on. So we need to take a look at Ethereum, what they are doing well, and if we can catch up to them. Then, Ethereum, they use Solidity and they use global state. So we need to think about how do we do these decentralized applications on UTXOs. So we have a different contract design that's required. So we can't just do an easy copy-paste. We need to re-architect and rethink closely about all these smart contracts. But what's our big advantage? If we catch up, if we manage to do the same smart contracts, we have a big advantage in scaling. So this means no high fees. This means not limited to 25 transactions per second, but maybe 25,000, maybe even more. The testing will have to prove that. And this means the big scaling advantage means that there is low fees, that there is no congestion, and that there is not layer 2s required. Layer 2s can be optional if users want special features like maybe privacy features or special EVM features, but they are not required for users just to be able to do normal transactions. And then the other catching up that we have to do in our big strategy to get back to these good places in the ranking is we have to improve on smart contract wallets. Like Ethereum is the de facto standard on Ethereum, but we can do much better starting anew with CashTokens. And then, of course, lastly, we can't only do what Ethereum already did, but with low fees. We also need our own novel use cases. So we can all speculate on what these novel use cases are. And I think prediction markets might be a big one of them, but we will still have to see what will be developed on CashTokens. And then lastly, so what does the future bring? If this is the strategy to catch up, what are people working on? And I can mainly speak about what I am working on myself, what I see other people closely around me also working on. So a big thing people are working on is contract templates. So the problem with, for example, MetaMask and the smart contract wallets we see today is that they are dumb signers. They get a transaction, they ask the user to approve it, but the user has no idea which smart contract he just approved. With contract templates, they could be a trusted list of this token contract, like these opcodes, this smart contract transaction. So for example, with the ninjas, if I go back a bit, with the ninjas, people are signing a transaction, but they have little idea what they are signing. They don't understand the contract, and it's pretty much impossible for them to read. They can take a look at the inputs and outputs and at the addresses to get an idea of what is happening, but they will never really know for sure. So these contract templates, with the contract templates, the wallet could tell the user, well, this is using a minting transaction for this token ID. And this is the minting price, and this is the amount minted. So the user could be way more informed to know what he's doing. So if the site tried to scam the user and just present him with a transaction that would steal all of his tokens, many people might currently just press sign. Whereas with this new template, with this templating system of contracts, it would say, attention, this is an unknown template, or it could even say, warning, this is a template known to steal all your tokens. So this would be a big improvement for wallets. Then the thing I am working on is we want to upgrade CashScript, so the smart contract language, to have libraries. For example, with Solidity, it's like a popular use case to import functions from other people who have done groundwork and built a library, and then you can import functions and use them in your smart contract. So we are looking at Ethereum, and we're saying we want this too for CashScript. So that's something I will be working on. And then another idea that's pretty prevalent in BCH is, well, SLP and SBCH didn't really work out for us. And there's little reason to pick them back up now that we try to move forward with CashTokens. But still, we want to bridge some of the tokens over. So we want to convert them to CashTokens. Maybe this will help the CashTokens network effect, and this will for sure be good for the token projects that are currently stuck on an old token protocol, for Bitcoin Cash specifically. And then lastly, we have to catch up with tooling, documentation, and tutorials. So if you are a new developer starting on CashTokens, you will see that it's still early, that it's still a lot of documentation missing, there's not a lot of tooling, and there's for sure not a lot of tutorials. So we need to improve this. We need to do our best to make it as accessible as possible so new developers can join the movement. So thank you all for listening, and this was my overview of the CashTokens on BCH. Thank you. Should we do any questions or?
It's work. Number two. Okay. So, do you guys have any questions? Did one? Because I can also.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about whatever.
So when I try to pitch CashTokens to some business people, the question I get is, are there any bridges for other chains like Ethereum or Binance chain? Do you know if anyone is working on this?
Yeah, so not yet currently. So with this, with the SBCH bridge, we hope to have open source like tooling and contract. So there's a swap from an EVM chain to CashTokens. But we are planning initially to do a one-way bridge, so it's pretty easy. You can burn on the host chain, like the original chain, and you can just mint new tokens, recreate them on Bitcoin Cash. So, but a two-way bridge is more complex, and it's also many of the bridging solutions that exist today are with admin keys. So I'm not sure if there's even a good fundamental solution. But I hope that people will be working on these bridging solutions. And I agree that it would be great if Ethereum projects can be ported over or something like that. But currently there's nothing yet, and we hope to have some first version soonish.
So any more questions? Otherwise, I can also ask mine. So I looked at the CashToken script spec. Also, as you mentioned, I worked on Mitra and things like that. And I mean, the original vision was to change for Mitra was to change the transaction format, and then while you do that, you also you get the advantages of higher scalability and also of native tokens.
Yeah, I would say that's more similar to the PMV3 ID then. But because it's changed the transaction version and it's
yeah. So I mean, one of the other points of Mitra was to increase throughput by like you're aware of Project Hamilton, right? Like the way they structure the transactions, it's more scalable because you don't have to do a round trip to the like to the disk. Do you and I heard discussions on Bitcoin Cash that they also want to upgrade the transaction format. What are your thoughts on that? Like, how would it interplay with cash tokens? And do you think that for other blockchains which might also want to like peak at Bitcoin Cash, and I mean, I probably mostly mean eCash on that front, do you think we should bundle it together in one like transaction upgrade plus native tokens upgrade if you know, if we want to do that? You know, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so for Bitcoin Cash and for the cash tokens upgrade, it was seen as a big disadvantage of PMV3 that it had to introduce a new transaction format because it would break a lot of things like indexers. Many wallets would not understand it. So it was seen, as a big plus that we ended up doing it in a way that could be backwards compatible. Like old wallets can still see incoming transactions. They don't know how to sign, so you can't accidentally burn it. So to me, that was the cleanest solution possible. But if you want to introduce a third transaction format, and if you're smaller, then it's lower cost to do so. Then I think it's smart to think about how to combine these two. I'm not sure how they would interplay. So I can't really speak to that part. But I know it's still the transaction version 3 is still an open ID, and I think for the long term people still want to do it, but it's also seen as quite disruptive. So I feel like there needs to be a big rationale of why we do certain improvements, and that the cost of doing the improvements and introducing the new version, that outweighs the benefits outweigh the cost. So I don't think it's on the short term horizon for Bitcoin Cash. I think for the short term, we have the adaptive block size limit coming up. And then for the next year, what I saw most people talking about is the UTXO commitments. So I think the version 3 is unfortunate on the back burner. But maybe for eCash, it can be more soon. So.
So first of all, you should know that I'm a Bitcoin maxi.
Welcome to the conference.
So my question is, why do you build it on Bitcoin Cash and not Bitcoin? And my thoughts behind this are, Bitcoin is number 1, and you are going for number 3. So you're admitting that you are maybe number 3. You're hoping it. Mm-hmm. So why don't you build on Bitcoin? This is the fundamental cash. This is decentralized. This is secure, and you are building a scalability thing, which I think is great. And I think this could be off-chain on Bitcoin. So why don't you use Bitcoin? Yeah,
so it can't really be off-chain. So the whole idea of cash tokens that is on the layer 1 part of the UTXO set, and it's also a hard fork. So on Bitcoin, and this was part of the reason Bitcoin Cash and eCash exist, is because Bitcoin, the way they do upgrades is they decide to only do soft fork upgrades, which means old version, you have to essentially trick old versions of the nodes that they are still fully validating while they are not. For example, with SegWit, they did a SegWit change in such a way that transactions seem like they are anyone can spend transactions. So if you do a SegWit transaction on BCH or eCash, anybody can spend your coins. But on the way they did it on BTC with a soft fork, this means that it looks like anyone can spend your coins output, but actually it's a way, there's more rules. These are the new SegWit rules. And so the old clients get tricked into thinking they are fully validating, but they forget to check the SegWit rules. So instead of doing only soft forks, eCash and Bitcoin Cash, we decided to also do hard forks. This means everybody has to upgrade by a certain date. And if you don't upgrade, you get forked off the network. So we always do on Bitcoin Cash a 1-year hard fork. So we announced this in advance. It's May 15th, and it will be May 15th next year, and it was May 15th previous year. So this is the fundamental reason that we do scheduled hard forks, whereas Bitcoin doesn't do hard forks, so it could not implement cash tokens the way it is. And maybe a broader answer, because everybody is here for electronic cash, is many people didn't want to split off Bitcoin. I think we all feel we are still Bitcoiners in our heart, but Bitcoin made some decisions. For example, the current throughput, even with SegWit, it's like 3 to 7 transactions per second. whereas, you know, Visa and MasterCard, they do 1,000 transactions per second. So we're not even competing in the same league with Bitcoin. And then with Bitcoin, we are trusting on these layer 2 solutions. And one of the big advantages of BCH is there is no need for layer 2s. I think it was somewhere on the slide.
Lightning is going to fuck him.
No layer 2 is required. So that's kind of the pitch for Bitcoin Cash. Whereas with Bitcoin, I believe the pitch is we bet a whole farm on layer 2s. So the layer 2s better work. And the layer 2s kind of work for the Lightning Network, and there's many other ideas for layer 2s, but they don't work on the scale required, and they are still a hassle to use. So I feel like the Bitcoin Cash ethos is kind of different than the Bitcoin ethos in this regard, because we don't want to risk it all on no layer 2s. We want to scale the blockchain, like the layer 1, as much as possible, and this means that your Raspberry Pi might not be able to validate the whole history of the whole global network and every transaction that's ever made, but that's a trade-off we're willing to make. And also we just think that technology improves, right, with Moore's law, that kind of idea. So at least every year, it's reasonable to expect the hardware to also, which runs the global infrastructure, to also double in capacity. Whereas with Bitcoin, they decided in 2014 that 1 megabyte each 10 minutes, that's the reasonable limit forever. Well, yeah, many people here think that's technologically, that's not sound engineering. It can be, you need to fix a limit, but it's certainly not 1 megabyte every 10 minutes. So that's also why I'm enthusiastic that Bitcoin Cash will have a dynamic block size. This means there's no cabal of developers coming together every period saying what do we decide as wise overlords that we want the maximum block size to be. This way we leave it over kind of to an adaptive algorithm, the same way we do for the difficulty adjustment. So how hard should it be to find a Bitcoin block? Well, there is no central planning committee for that. It's an adaptive algorithm, like a difficulty adjustment algorithm, and we want to do the same for the block size. So I feel that as the two fundamental answers. The first one is it's a hard fork, and second one is we don't do it Bitcoin as a layer 2 because the whole ethos of Bitcoin Cash is no layer 2s required and scaling on-chain. I think it's the same for eCash and Lotus and many other projects focused on this peer-to-peer electronic cash vision. If you have any follow-up, yeah. Or we can talk about this more later, of course.
Yeah, there's going to be answer.
Yeah.
By the way, if you have questions, like we don't have any questions from the audience, but please feel free to post them. I will read them aloud. Maybe some people have questions about like cash tokens, different use cases, and yeah. Guys, any more questions? Falk? All right. So I don't have any more questions.
Go for it.
Do you have any plans for stable coins or any thoughts about how to approach people to get stable coins on your chain? Because so far those seem to be the most used tokens on almost every chain.
Yeah, so I'm very hesitant about like trusted stablecoins like Tether and smaller versions. Of course, you have USDC, which is kind of more trusted and regulated to a certain extent. But I'm enthusiastic about over-collateralized stablecoins. So, and thus far, DAI has held up pretty well. And over-collateralized is still a very different category than algorithmic stablecoins. So algorithmic stablecoins is like Luna, where there's no backing essentially. It's just fairy tale money, where an algorithm should keep the peg. But over-collateralized, I think it's economically sound. Yeah, I think it's economically sound, so it makes sense to me as a model more than the fully trusted setup. So I don't like trust because, yeah, otherwise I wouldn't be working on smart contracts. So I don't like that you have to trust, for example, Tether, that they are audited in the Bahamas or somewhere, and that they have the money in the vault. So I think a DAI design technically is better, but how to get adoption for your DAI-like stablecoin, I think like the way it was for DAI is that it will probably be used first, not in retail adoption, unfortunately, in the real world, but it will be used in these DEXs. Like it will become a way for people to cash out if they, for example, if they use this cauldron swap, that they want to cash out after a few trades, they want to lock in their profits, so they will trade their. They can, of course, also use an exchange, but currently no exchanges support CashTokens. So if you're trading on CashTokens, it makes sense to cash out to a stable coin and then keep your profits there until you want to move back in or something like that. So that's why I think these stable coins, they will first be used on these decentralized exchanges and see liquidity that way before you will see much adoption from like big exchanges or even from merchant adoption in the real world. So.
All right, so another question?
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to add to this answer that I think what people are looking into is how to tokenize the AnyHedge contracts. That's going to be, I think, the first stable concept.
Yeah, so
like in principle, it's almost the same thing as Oracle or.
Yeah, I can talk to that a bit because I had the pleasure to work 2 months with the General Protocols team, and I got to do some smart contract research for them. So what I worked on specifically is how to do shorting. So currently the AnyHedge contract, it allows for leveraged longs. So if you want to speculate on the future of an asset and you think it's going to rise in price, you can leverage, so you can over-speculate with your portfolio. And I worked on enabling leveraged short. So just if you think the price is going to decrease of Bitcoin Cash, that you can also bet on the price decreasing with leverage. But the idea of tokenizing AnyHedge contracts was already discussed back then. So this was in November of last year. And my takeaway was that it's hard to tokenize. So it's smart. It's certainly a big market because it's like a tokenized derivative contract. So this means each contract can be traded, and also on stock exchanges and the financial markets, these tokenized futures contracts, they are traded. So it's a big market, but they are not the same as stable coins. Because, for example, with DAI, you get paid one DAI, and it's one DAI forever. Like, it doesn't have an expiration date, and it's also not limited volatility protection. So it's not if it is if the collateral collapses, but then it's liquidated. So if you have one DAI, you don't need to worry about the liquidation boundaries. Whereas with these futures contracts, they are limited in time. They are not really fungible. So if I have a contract that's for 3 months with a certain volatility protection, so for example, 2x short and a 5x long combined in one contract, it gives me certain thresholds for the liquidation events. And this means that it's unique from other contracts. So $1 is not $1 is not $1, so it's not really a fungible token. It's more like an NFT where each contract has its own parameters, and it can be traded, and it's useful to be tradable, but it's not a stable coin. So that's kind of my take. So I'm thinking more in the DAI category than in the AnyHedge. Yeah. And also AnyHedge, the big selling point, they say, was that each contract is atomic. So no contract doesn't influence any other contract. Whereas with DAI, you essentially have one big pot of money, one organization managing it. So it's quite a different design to reason about. So there is there's a shared pool of funds. Whereas with AnyHedge, you have your little pool of funds, and if the liquidation event happens, it's just for you. Whereas with DAI, other people are essentially sharing your risk, which is a higher risk for the smart contract, right? So if your DAI gets hacked, everybody is wrecked. Whereas with AnyHedge, because it's atomic, if one part is vulnerable, it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's money can be stolen. Yeah. So it's different.
Yeah, definitely extremely interesting with DAI use case, and I shared the same thoughts about AnyHedge with tokenization, right? And I mean, it would be cool if you could then split contracts and so forth later and maybe merge them, but of course that's different. So we are going to have a quick break. After that, we should have Richard Werner. Fortunately, he couldn't come here, but he will be live on, if everything works, on on Gather, and yeah, and we'll see each other maybe like 5 minutes before 11. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. And thank you so much, Mathieu. It's amazing that we got a BCH speaker. Yeah.